tea, silver, opium, and ironclads. It was a chain of commerce, a clash of empires, and a catalyst for conflict. A story of how a nation's thirst for a simple beverage could lead to two devastating wars, reshaping the destiny of millions. This is the story of the Opium Wars, how corporate profit met military powder, and how the ancient Qing dynasty first encountered the brutal logic of gunboat diplomacy. By the early 1800s, Britain was consumed by a national obsession: Chinese tea. But the Qing court, presiding over a vast and self-sufficient empire, had little interest in British goods. They demanded payment in one thing only: silver. This created a severe trade imbalance. Silver poured out of British coffers, threatening the nation's economic stability. A new commodity was needed to reverse the flow, something China would buy in vast quantities. The answer, found by the British East India Company, was opium. Cultivated in British-controlled India and processed under the company's lucrative monopoly, chests of opium were auctioned in Calcutta, primed for a market where it was officially illegal. A sophisticated network of smugglers, both foreign and Chinese, threaded the coastline, slipping the drug past ineffective imperial patrols and corrupt local officials. The silver drain reversed. The trade deficit that had plagued Britain now became a crisis for Qing China, bleeding the imperial treasury dry. For the foreign merchants confined to Canton's 13 factories district, business was booming. They operated within a constrained system, but the profits were astronomical. But beyond the ledgers and warehouses, a social catastrophe was unfolding. At street level, addiction hollowed out families, destroyed livelihoods, and corroded the very fabric of society. Opium's chemistry promised a fleeting escape, a moment of calm, but it soon demanded everything its user had, and more. Imports soared through the 1830s, reaching tens of thousands of chests per year, all in defiance of repeated imperial bans. Alarmed by the social decay and economic drain, the Daoguang Emperor resolved to act, empowering an incorruptible official, Commissioner Lin Zexu, to eradicate the trade completely. Lin began with a moral appeal, writing a letter to Queen Victoria, questioning how a nation could profit from a poison it forbade its own people from consuming. His appeal was met with deafening silence, so Lin took decisive action. In 1839, he blockaded the foreign merchants in Canton and compelled them to surrender their entire stock, over 1 million kilograms of opium, which he then publicly destroyed at Human. For the pro-war lobby in London, this was the perfect pretext. Britain answered not with diplomacy, but with overwhelming force, steam power, advanced gunnery, and a modern navy. The technological disparity was immense. The First Opium War was not a contest of equals. It was a collision of industrial might against a pre-industrial military. Key forts along the coast fell one by one. The British fleet blockaded major ports and pushed up the Yangtze River, threatening the vital artery of the empire. Facing total defeat, the Qing court was forced to sue for peace. The negotiations culminated in the Treaty of Nanking, signed aboard a British warship in 1842. Its terms were punishing. China was forced to cede the island of Hong Kong to Britain, open 5 new treaty ports to foreign trade, pay a huge indemnity, and accept fixed tariffs it could not control. It was the first of what became known in China as the unequal treaties, agreements signed under duress that systematically stripped away Qing sovereignty. These new treaty ports swelled with foreign banks, warehouses, and consulates, becoming hubs of foreign power and influence on Chinese soil. The treaties also introduced the principle of extraterritoriality, placing foreigners under their own country's laws and beyond the reach of Chinese courts. Yet, the Treaty of Nanking never even mentioned opium. The profitable trade continued, and Western powers, now with a foothold, grew hungry for even greater access to China's markets and interior. Missionaries sought converts and traders sought customers, pushing deeper into the country and creating new points of friction with local authorities and populations. Tensions smoldered for over a decade, waiting for a spark to ignite a second, even more destructive blast. That spark came in 1856. The seizure of the Opium, a Chinese-owned but British-registered ship, provided Britain, and soon its new ally France, with the perfect pretext for another war. The Second Opium War saw Anglo-French forces capture Canton, press north, and advance all the way to the gates of Beijing itself. The resulting treaties of Tianjin in 1858 widened the cracks in Chinese sovereignty, opening more ports, allowing foreign legations in the capital, and finally legalizing the opium trade. When the Qing court resisted ratification, the Allied forces marched on Beijing. In an act of punitive destruction, they looted and burned the magnificent old summer palace to the ground in 1860. The Convention of Peking sealed the war's brutal conclusion. More concessions, larger indemnities, and a China forced open on Western terms. The legacy of these wars was profound. The ripples touched every aspect of Chinese life, eroding political sovereignty, forcibly integrating its economy into a global system, and leaving deep social scars. The humiliation of defeat and the ongoing toll of addiction sparked powerful new currents of reform, nationalism, and resistance that would define the next century of Chinese history. The cession of Hong Kong, a footnote in the treaty, seeded the growth of a world city, a legacy of coercive trade that continues to shape geopolitics. The Opium Ledger ultimately balanced profit against human suffering, national interest against moral consequence, a calculus that continues to haunt international relations and policy debates. History is never distant. It is written in the treaties, built into the skylines, and embedded in the price tag of every empire and every global deal we make today.